Good evening, and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And in the hubbub of daily life, it's easy to forget about those who are most neglected in our society, and frequently that means children. Tonight we have as our guest someone who can talk about some of the more neglected children. We have Lisa Drake, the Executive Director of the CASA program for DuPage County. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And now that I've introduced you as the Executive Director of CASA, I'm sure no one knows what that is. So let's start with what CASA stands for.
CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And it's an organization that functions on the county level in every state of the United States.
So court-appointed special advocate, that sounds scary. But what does this advocate do, and how does this advocate get appointed by the court? But let's start with, what do they do?
We advocate for children that are in the juvenile court system through no fault of their own due to abuse or neglect.
So we're not talking about juvenile delinquency necessarily here.
No, all abuse, neglect, and dependent cases that are seen in juvenile court by the two judges in DuPage County are assigned a special advocate to speak in their best interests in the court system, and that would be my advocates.
So what is CASA as an organization? Is it is it a government entity? Is it an independent entity? What is the organization itself?
We are a private organization. We're 501c3, not-for-profit. We have been around since 1993, and we came to be when a group of citizens came together and decided that the abused and neglected children in the court system in DuPage County needed someone to speak in their best interests. The original CASA came to pass or came to being in Washington State, yes, and there was a general jurisdiction judge, Judge Sukup, who saw all sorts of cases throughout the day, whether it was a petty crime or some real estate or any type of case could come in front of him. And the cases that bothered him the most were the cases due to abuse and neglect. He realized he was making choices, long-lasting decisions and choices about these children's future without ever seeing the child in court. And
now, is that standard practice that in these cases where the children are abused or neglected, that the child, him or herself, does not appear in court? Is that common practice?
Rarely in court, yes. And everybody else in the court is there with a particular slant, and they're all paid. So we have the child's attorney, the guardian ad litem, we have the state attorney, and the public defender, and the caseworker. And then we have the CASA volunteer who has no axe to grind or any other self-serving, no agenda at all, except for to speak in the best interest of the child.
So you mentioned that the CASA workers are volunteers, right? Is that true? All the CASA advocates are in fact volunteers?
Yes, that's true. There are two different types of programs. There's a Friends of the Court program, which is how we operate in DuPage, and then there's a GAL, which stands for Guardian Ad Litem program, where a volunteer would work with a pro bono attorney to act as the child's attorney and make recommendations in court.
So the ad litem, that advocate would in fact be an attorney?
They would work with an attorney, or a group of advocates would work with a particular attorney determining what best interests would be.
And they would then, though, represent that child in court?
That's correct. CASA of DuPage does not do that. We are simply a friend of the court. We make no recommendations. We provide an objective and unbiased snapshot of what's been happening between court appearances, what's been happening with the child, what their education, how their education's going, how their health is, how they're managing in their foster home, what's happening. We meet with them monthly, attend all of their meetings at schools or with all of the people involved in making sure that the child stays safe.
So how do you find volunteers who are willing to do that? That sounds like a tremendous time commitment, and not just time, but emotional commitment in someone that you may not, in fact, probably don't even know.
Absolutely.
At least not initially, right?
Yes, yes.
How do you find people willing to do that?
I have to be honest and say DuPage County has been blessed with a number of people that step up. Each year we train between 36 and 40 new advocates a year so that we can serve 100% of the children that are in the system.
And how many children would that be?
At December 31st, it was 236 children we were serving.
So that's about 6 per advocate, right?
We have 144 active.
Oh, I'm sorry.
100
No, you train 40 some.
Yes, we
right?
train 40 advocates
Right.
a year so that we can continue to serve 100% of the children in the court system. Every child that comes into the court due to abuse, neglect, or dependency is assigned a CASA advocate. We train 36 to 40 advocates a year so that every child that comes in gets an advocate.
So I would assume that 30 or 40 drop out every year too, right?
Well, we ask the advocate to stay with the child through the entire.
Oh, I see, because you need to grow because the child could be in the system longer,
That's correct.
and you can't assign some unlimited number of children to a particular advocate, right?
Right. There are national standards, and you're not able to take on more than one case at a time.
Really?
And a
Just
case,
one at a time?
but a case consists of however many children come in that family unit.
Okay.
So there could be 4 children for one case. It's not one-on-one. That's why we have 144 serving 236 right now.
So some proportion of those is one-on-one, but
Correct.
not necessarily, and you never know when you sign up
That's exactly
what you're
right.
going to do, right?
Yes.
So how extensive is this training? What does someone have to go through to become a trained advocate?
We train 2 times a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. We have a pretty thorough interview process and screening process. All of the candidates are background checked. We do DCFS check. We do all sorts of checks, references. An extensive interview process takes place, and then the training coordinator determines, with usually a really heart-to-heart discussion with the potential advocate, if it's a good fit or not. Just because you apply doesn't necessarily mean you'll become an advocate.
What's the ratio, applicants to those who are accepted?
I would say maybe 87 to 90% are accepted. What will happen is through the interview process, there will be in-depth conversation about what it really means to do this, what they will encounter, it's not the people that are our advocates aren't used to seeing what they're going to see. And so it's the training coordinator's job to prepare them and make sure they're prepared to see and be a part of all that they're going to be a part of.
So
And
you make that sound so ominous. Prepare them for all that they're going to see. What are they going to see?
you're going to go into homes where children have been taken away due to abuse or neglect. To be taken out of your home, the parents had to have not met a minimum parenting standard by DCFS's take by their rules. The minimum parenting standard is so low that when the hotline calls are made, reporting
Hotline calls to DCFS,
to
right?
DCFS, yes.
Which I should say for those who don't know, Department of Children and Family Services, right?
Correct, yes. 95% of those children go back home with a safety plan in place
From the hotline calls?
from the hotline.
Which DCFS would arrange, that safety plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
And make sure that everything's going to be okay and people will start getting services that they need to keep the family intact. The goal is to keep the families intact, DCFS's goal.
Mm-hmm.
So the remaining 5% are the ones that we receive.
So these are the ones where, despite DCFS intervention, despite the
Yes.
safety plan, this still isn't going to work out. So these are the kids in most jeopardy, right?
They need to be removed from their homes. It's not safe for them to be at home. So those are the cases that our advocates are assigned to. So when you say ominous, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is not anything you've ever seen or could imagine. But the nice part, or the way that we like to look at it at CASA, is we're coming in after the damage has been done, and we're part of the healing process. We're part of making sure this child now, from this point on, receives all that they need to be safe, educated, healthy, growing child.
So is there any kind of average age range that these children fall into? Could it be any age to young adulthood almost?
Yes. The majority of our children are 0 through 12. That's
So-
the biggest portion.
0?
Yeah, babies.
Yes.
Some children are taken away at the hospital
Really?
because there will be substance abuse, substances in the mother system. That's basis for taking a child away. Maybe this is the third or fourth time she's had a baby and she's already been noted in the system, they test the baby for narcotics or alcohol, whatever, and it can get taken
If
away.
the baby has, say, fetal drug alcohol
Yep.
or alcohol syndrome at that point, that might be reason to
DCFS
take the
can take
child
them
now.
away immediately.
So obviously that child in that case could not do anything to defend him or herself
That's
or
right.
represent himself well. So coming back to the training though, understanding
Yes.
that these might be dire situations, very uncomfortable ones to actually find yourself inserted into. What kind of training prepares someone to do that? What do you have to, how long is the program, how intense, and how do you do it?
The spring training is over a week or a week and a half, and it's all day long. It's a 35-hour program mandated by national. DuPage CASA has a 40-hour program, and within that 40 hours, there's also a 3-hour court observation that is required.
So you have to go to court and see how these things really work
Yes.
in the courtroom.
And then in the fall, we have it in the evening, training in the evening, so that people who work during the day or otherwise can't make it for a week and a half, they can train in the evening.
So what kind of support services, if I found myself as a volunteer and got into this situation and thought, oh my Lord, I'm way over my head here, what kind of support do I as a volunteer get from CASA?
We have 4 advocate supervisors that oversee all of our advocates. They go to court and meetings with the advocate if that's something you want. They're available all the time. They'll go and do anything you need them to do. They help you write your reports. They stand next to you in court. They're with you at your meetings. Whatever is going on, you are supported. We also have CEC credits that are required of each advocate.
Continuing education.
Correct. 12 per year. So our advocates come together, whether it's a book club or brown bag is what we call it when we have guest speakers or anything else that's going on. They are coming in the office, they're coming together with their peers, other advocates, and talking and being supported and being in are present in a supportive environment.
Because I would imagine it takes an emotional toll on a volunteer, right? If you're describing this properly, these are dire situations that these children are in, right? They've been removed, but nonetheless,
Correct.
there's still an environment of danger that surrounds them, I would think, at this point,
Well,
or at least uncertainty.
Right. Well, the damage has already been done in a sense. They are in a safe environment, but whatever has come as a result of the abuse or neglect is what the advocate is dealing with.
So what exactly does the advocate do? I mean, especially the child may have an attorney, so the attorney would be in court representing the child, or someone on the other side representing the state or whomever. What role actually does the advocate do? What do you do during this period of time?
The advocate will visit the child, check the house, not check the house, but look at the surroundings. How well is the child adapting to his foster family? Does he fit in? Is he comfortable? Does he have anxiety? Is he going to school? Is he getting his needs met? Going to the doctor or for checkups or anything else that needs to happen? Are all of those things happening for the child? When a child goes into foster care, DCFS puts together a service plan for the child, not just the child, but the parents too. And each time the child is in court or the case is called, the judge will look at the progress being made. So is there progress being made on the parent's part? Is there progress being made on the child's part? Or is the child receiving the services they should be receiving? Is everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing? That's where we stand at 10,000 feet and look and make sure everything is being done that's supposed to be done, putting that in a report and giving that to the judge. So,
for example, if one of the advocates were to go to one of these foster homes and think that things were just not right, for whatever reason,
yes.
then what would the advocate do? Take it back to court? How does that happen?
If it's dire, they would tell their advocate supervisor immediately, and we would act accordingly.
But when you say act accordingly, do you go back to court? You call the lawyers? You
would
call the police? I mean, what happens?
Depending on the situation, we would probably call the child's attorney and let them know what's happening, and then also the caseworker.
And all these children have attorneys, correct? A court-appointed attorney or state-appointed attorney?
It's a state-appointed attorney. In DuPage County, there are 3 attorneys for 226 children.
So the attorney's not going to
I'm
be,
sorry, 236.
the attorney cannot pay terribly close attention to any given case.
That's correct.
And the advocate who has only one case, even if it's a few children, can really pay attention to this. Is that really the kind of the, I'm trying to get at the nut of what the problem was. And it seems the problem was that this plan existed that the court would come up with, but that the people around it to enforce the plan are very busy and have many things to do,
Very overloaded.
and a child could easily fall through the cracks. The plan may or may not get implemented. Is that
That's exactly
correct?
right. That's exactly
Okay.
right. And we only have our case to worry about.
so? As executive director, do you yourself handle cases as well? Or?
I do not.
Okay, so your job is to run the operation, right?
Operation and fundraising.
And fundraising. That's
Yes.
key. How is CASA funded?
We're privately funded, primarily through grants, individuals, and we have 2 major fundraisers a year. But we raise about $450,000 a year to support the program. We have a staff of 7. 82% of our funding goes straight to the program. The rest of it is operations and fundraising. So, and 7 employees, actually 4 running the program, in turn oversee 144 volunteers for
That sounds
440.
pretty efficient.
It is pretty efficient. And we do it at no charge to the taxpayers, the children involved, the courts, or anybody. If we just exist so that the service is available for the children.
So you mentioned that this got started when a bunch of people in DuPage looked at the situation and said this needs some intervention. I'm curious about how that developed, because I myself know that I try to keep abreast of the news, and I follow what's happening in the world and in my community, and I would have no idea whether children were being well handled or not. It's just it's way beneath my radar. So how was it that this problem came to be known, and how did this group come together who knew about it?
Well, CASA is a national program that functions on the county level in every state. Not every county has a CASA program, but every state does. We are 108 counties, I believe, in Illinois. 102, and 36 have CASA programs.
Cook County has one as well?
Cook County has one, so does Kane, DeKalb, Lake, Will. Central and Southern Illinois, there are fewer programs. But National's goal, naturally, would be to have a program in every county. And that was before my time, almost 20 years ago, but
You've been with the program just a few years?
just 2 now, yeah. Came together, and this is a very affluent community. The resources are here to put together a program as such, and working with the judges and the attorneys and the state's attorneys, the group came together and decided that they wanted to put one in place for DuPage.
So, given that this is an entirely volunteer operation, no official connection with any state, federal, local government
Right.
entity, how is it that CASA was able to create the relationship with the justice system in order to be able to take on this role?
The juvenile court juvenile court judges are very big supporters and fans of our program because of what we provide. We're an objective, unbiased report for them in the court. The support that we have gotten from the 18th Circuit has been tremendous, and as such, we continue to exist and work with them day in and day out, and the judges are very, I wouldn't say protective of us, but we help them be successful, and we help all of the children in the community that are in this situation hopefully become successful or have successful outcomes due to our existence. And who doesn't want successful outcomes?
Well, and actually that leads me to another question about this sort of the larger societal implications of what CASA does. We know the cost of citizens who literally fall out of the system, even though the children you're dealing with are not necessarily juvenile delinquents. In fact, they're not juvenile delinquents, or certainly not at that point.
Right.
But the connection between abuse and horrible home life and juvenile crime is well established.
Yes.
Right. So these are high potential fall through the cracks children, right? And they could easily grow up to be criminals, or be homeless, or whatever,
Right.
to damage not only their own lives but the lives of people around them. So, has there been any kind of attempt to, I hate to put it in dollars and cents, but to quantify what that benefit is? What does CASA do in society? We know that it's, what is it, $30,000 a year to house someone
Estimate, yeah.
in detention, right? You go to
Right.
jail or prison, it's $30,000 a year to keep you in prison.
Right.
Less than it costs to send you to some colleges, right?
Right.
So has anyone actually looked at the overall societal savings of a program like this?
It's millions nationwide, absolutely. CASA provides all of the services that the state can't, or make sure that all of the services are in place, that because of the overload of DCFS and the GALs, like I said, 3 of them are overseeing 226 kids, making sure that everything that's supposed to be taking place is taking place. And that in and of itself is invaluable.
Well, and if I think about the societal benefit, even just the money you would save if you had to fund something like this, which would be millions, probably per county, I would think. But just the societal cost of keeping people out of jail, turning people into productive citizens instead of a drain on the economy.
Absolutely.
Saving the tragedy if one of these children were to grow up and be a murderer, for example. Families are destroyed by that, and if you can redirect them, then that family that might have been destroyed isn't. Well, what value is that to society, right?
Right.
So who do you have advocating on behalf of CASA? I mean, there's all these benefits, right? And it seems like a program that, if anything, should be expanded further. So who studies that? Do you work with academia or anything like that in order to try to get that message developed or get it spread?
That comes from national. We do have different programs, marketing programs that trickle down to the county level, and the information that is gathered at a national level is given to the county programs to use. We are our own best advocate. I like to say that we're the best kept secret in DuPage County. The average person doesn't know about us, hasn't heard of us, and doesn't need us. Because we're appointed by the court, you can't come to the courthouse and knock on our door and ask for help. So that said, unless you have any reason to be in the court system, we're not necessary for you.
You're just invisible. Really.
We are invisible, but the children we serve are our future contributors or not, which is what you were talking about earlier. And I think that supporting an organization such as ours shows that everybody cares about these 236 children, that everybody wants the best to happen for them, wants the best outcome for them.
So how did you become drawn to this? You said you've been with the program, you've been the executive director for 2 years, right?
Yes.
So you had a career before this and have done other things. So what attracted you to come in here and be the executive director of this particular effort?
I was, prior to this, the executive director of the Wheaton Chamber of Commerce, and I love working with the businesses and the networking and the community, but I wanted to do something more community service based. Along with being at the chamber, and before that, I was with the Wheaton Junior Women's Club, which is a part of the General Federation of Women's Clubs. And in Illinois, CASA is the Juniors Pet Project. So you
knew about it from
I did,
way back.
and we did house walks. We've done all sorts of things financially supporting the organization. So when the position came open, wow, I've known about them for 10 years, and it's a true honor to be able to work and raise funds for an organization like this.
So is it an easy sell or a hard sell when you're raising funds? Because the story is compelling, but again, you're unknown, you're under the radar.
We are under the radar, and we'd like to stay that way. In sense of we don't want to grow. We don't want to serve more clients. We will, and we'll be ready to do it. But we can't have too many friends. We say powerless children need powerful friends. And whether it's a contribution of $5 or $5,000 or $50,000, all of it is worthy and needed and affects and impacts our community. I mean, abuse could be next door and you don't know it. It could be anywhere. And these kids are there through no fault of their own.
Is there any effort, I know you represent the children, but is there any effort to try to expand the program or at least connect with programs to teach awareness of child abuse? So, I mean, general societal awareness.
We are, our agreement with the court is very finite. Our program will only be A, B, and C. We won't ever expand the program. We don't need to serve more people because we serve everyone that comes in. So in that sense, our hands, we're really in a box and this is what we do every day. But we do have partnerships and relationships with other domestic violence organizations in the county. April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. There are a lot of activities.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
and blue is the color.
I'm wearing blue, sorry.
And we put on an event, Hands Around the Courthouse, which is it's an awareness event. It's over the lunch hour. We do it at the courthouse with the state's attorneys and public defenders and the judges and advocates. And last year we had Justice Ann Jorgensen, second appellate court judge, speak. We remember the children that died in Illinois due to abuse. Last year it was 63 children. And it's just coming together, talking about what's going on, about 10 minutes of remarks, and pay our interest and respects to the children.
To the children who weren't quite so fortunate.
Yes.
This may be a touchy question. Has a child ever been lost once they're in this your advocacy program?
Not in DuPage.
That's good news, isn't it?
It is.
And in 20
Yes.
years, that's
Yes.
been true, right?
Yes.
So if you were going to try to tell people who are watching the show, who are interested in the program, I mean, what can they do if they're interested in being an advocate or if they're just interested in supporting the cause?
Sure.
What do they do?
They're welcome to contact us. We do have our advocate program, and then we have Friends of CASA. And these are people that they can't make maybe the time commitment that's needed for the advocate role. Maybe they want to help at the golf outing, or maybe they'll help us stuff the letters, the appeal letters, or help in different ways. We need additional help outside of just advocates. So we've got our Friends program.
Fundraising always needs help, right?
Always, always, always.
Well, believe it or not, we're already out of time.
Oh my goodness.
So I hope
It did go fast.
I hope that the appeal has reached a wide audience.
Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for being here. It's been very enlightening for me as well.
My pleasure.
So
Thank
thanks.
you.
And thank you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night at